Welcome to Your Favorite Self with me, Sophia Hyde. I'm on a mission to change the conversation in the personal growth space to one that gives you back all the power. Gone are the days of pursuing things that other people told us to value. The beauty of the word favorite is that it means you have full ownership to declare what you want. This is a space for conversations centered around how to birth those desires that are sitting just beneath the surface. As a certified master life coach, I'm here to help you get tangible results and transformation. So, let's get to work. Hi, welcome back. It means a lot to me that you guys are here. When I decided that I was going to do this and put this out into the world, one of the commitments I made to myself was that I wasn't going to look at the numbers because I didn't want to be distracted by them or attach value or meaning to them when it's really about the audience and engaging with you guys and adding value. But what I didn't know was going to happen was that the service that I use to publish these podcasts was going to send me like these email updates. And so the first day I dropped it, it said, congrats on 25 downloads. And then the second day it was congrats on 50 downloads. And maybe the number's grown, but I haven't gotten any more emails. And so I just want to say hi to the 50 of you or however many it is who are listening to this. I am so grateful that with all the content in the world and all of the ways that you could be spending your time, you're here. And I'm going to keep showing up for you. I take that really seriously, that you could be doing a lot of things with your time and you could be listening to a lot of other podcasters. But you chose this, and because I take that really seriously, the lens through which every episode that I record is going, that I'm going to look through is going to be, is this adding value? Can someone use this to make their life better? And I want the answer to always be yes. I want to respect your time, and I want us to grow together. And so with that said, let's dive into today's topic. Last week, I introduced the favorite life wheel, which for the rest of the time that I'm podcasting, I will be referring to it. You'll hear me say things like your spokes or the wheel or your wheel, that language. That's why I wanted to do it first, because I use that language a lot and I wanted you guys to have a reference of what I was talking about. The second tool that I use the most is called the thought wheel. And this tool allows you to really take power over your thoughts, because we believe a lot of our thoughts. Just because it enters our mind, sometimes we think that that means that it's true, but it's not. We are not our thoughts. We are the being that's behind them. So we can actually detach from them. We can see them. We can change them. But our thoughts have a lot of control over us. On the spoke, there's 10 spokes on the wheel. Of all 10 spokes, there's really 2 that over and over and over and over again, I witness if people will pour their energy into one of these 2 spokes or both of these 2 spokes, everything else will start lifting up. They're very powerful at pulling up. One of those is self-care, which we will talk about plenty as these episodes progress. But the other one is the mind spoke. I'm sure you've heard a lot of cliches. What you think about, you bring about, right? Our thoughts have a lot of power, And one thing I struggled with for a really long time was, how do I figure out which ones are the thoughts that are not serving me? And how do I figure out what new thoughts I should create that will serve me? How do I take more ownership over my mind? And so this tool that I'm going to share with you today, I call it the thought wheel. It was birthed out of that place of frustration. And it was birthed from a place of needing a solution for myself that I started using in my own life. And the more it worked for me, the more I started introducing it to clients. And the more clients I introduced it to, the more it was transformational for them, to the point that I haven't seen it fail. It's universally true. I am blessed with a very diverse group of clients. Some have just a bunch of people who started at the beginning of 2022 just graduated. And so some have recently graduated and moved on to the next seasons of their lives. But I've got young folks and old folks. So currently I'm coaching people between the ages of 16 and 68. At least I've shared their birthdays with me. So I have a few people in retirement. And I have some teenagers. Love them. Love everybody. I have every decade in between. I've got many different races and ethnicities, many backgrounds, LGBTQ community. I've got men, women, and servers, people that are like in the hospitality industry, all the way up to multi-million-dollar business owners, and a lot in between there too. Across the board, this tool works for them. Across the board. And so because of that, I want to introduce this to you because it's powerful. When you can learn to manage your thoughts and manage your mind, you can change pretty much everything else. So going back to that question, that point of frustration I had, which was, how do I even know which thoughts aren't serving me? How do I even know what needs to be, what I need to address? Alongside that, there is another problem that I was looking to solve. This tool worked on both of them. So let's talk about the other problem, which is escapism. Some people call it numbing, distracting. Many of us, part of the experience of being human, is we all have our own way to escape from the feelings we don't want to feel. And most of the time, it's subconscious. We are not actively saying to ourselves, I don't want to be sad, so I'm going to go do blah, blah, blah. What happens is we're sitting there and we just kind of get an impulse or an urge, and we listen to our impulse and urge and we follow it. And everybody's urges are different. For me, for those of you who want to, are visual, you can follow along this podcast on YouTube, should you so be inclined. But for the rest of you, you'll be able to enjoy this episode just by listening if you just want to stay on the podcast. So for me personally, when I see that urge coming up, it's usually one of two things that I look for my distractions and my escapism. And one of those is I will feel a pull towards the kitchen around 10 p.m. at night. Now, sometimes it's just a bunch of carbs. I'm opening up the snack cabinet and looking. A lot of times, if there's ice cream in the house, it is like calling me like a magnet, like a beacon. It's that combination of the carbs and the sugar all at once, right? And I, struggled for a long time with this late night snacking, late night eating, and it's not because I'm hungry, right? Because if it was really about hunger, then I could just feed my body. I could open the refrigerator, heat up some dinner leftovers, fruit and vegetables would be fine, but it's never that. It's never, oh yeah, I'm hungry, let me eat some celery and a meat stick or something. No, it's always the sugar and the carbs, which means that I'm looking for some serotonin and some dopamine. Give me a hit because I don't feel good. I want some happy hormones. Lift me up. And so many of us can look to food to help us feel better, also known as emotional eating. This is really normal. But for other people, it's not food. Maybe it's social media. It's the scroll. Maybe it's alcohol. You hear many people say, oh, I just have to have a glass of wine at the end of the day because it's got to wind down. Well, what are you having to escape from? Daily alcohol. Well, alcohol in general is just not good for the brain, but daily is really not good for you. It's really not good. So if this is a coping mechanism, well, what are you coping from? For other people, it is maybe TV, needing to watch a show to stop thinking about their lives, video games. This is even when addictions can pop in, like porn or drugs, sex addictions, right? Like you're just looking to escape from this. But you can even have healthy things. There are people who use exercise as their escape. Exercise is really good for you. We know this, right? But not if it's 2 or 3 hours a day to avoid the relationships in your life, right? Like what is there? All of these things are fine. Even mine being ice cream and social media. Those are mine. They're both fine in my life. When it's a Sunday afternoon and we're having a movie day as a family and we get some ice cream out and we sit on the couch and eat it together, that's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. And my social media feed is great. It's actually really relaxing for me. I've unfollowed all of the things that add stress or anxiety or make me feel bad about my life. Like it is just filled with beautiful things, content I love absorbing. So it's actually a good thing. But too much of a good thing is not good, right? And so it's more about how we're interacting with these things, how we're showing up. So when you go to numb and escape, why? Most people are, one, not self-aware. So they're not going to slow down and even ask themselves that question. But two, we're not really trained to. And so that's what this tool allows you to do. It is about thought management, but your feelings are actually an amazing place to enter through because our thoughts create our feelings. So when that feeling comes up, we can reflect, what was the thought behind this feeling that made me feel this way? What's behind it? And then when we can look behind it, we can choose better thoughts. So the thought wheel is a series of questions, like a journal prompt. And we're going to walk through it. But before we do that, I have a couple more like philosophy things to talk about before we get into the weeds and the details of the thought wheel. And one of those is the concept of a limiting belief. So this phrase is used a lot in the coaching industry. I heard it probably 10 or 15 years ago for the first time. And then I really wanted to get to work on what are my limiting beliefs and how do I rewrite them? How do I pick new ones? But as a coaching friend of mine named Dean said once to me, a picture cannot see its own frame. And that's a lot what limiting beliefs are like. When we're trapped inside of them, we often can't see them. Sometimes we can figure it out for ourselves, but most of the time we need something external to point it out to us. And that can be a coach. I do that for people all the time. I've had coaches do it for me. It can be a conversation with a friend, a conversation with a mentor. But somebody has to tell you that, I think I've heard it said before, that's stinking thinking. Sometimes our thoughts just need to be named as wrong. And we can trap ourselves in these limiting beliefs. A really easy way to think of that phrase, a simpler way, is the phrase. I'm wanting to say stereotype. It's not stereotype. Gosh, oh my gosh, it's like right there on the tip of my tongue. There's a word for when a phrase is really common. But whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. That's what a limiting belief is. When you think that you can't, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you think that you can, then you're more solution-oriented. You're going to look for a way. You're going to say, well, I can, maybe not the way that would be simple or easy. I have obstacles, I have problems, but then you can get solution-oriented and find them. Right? You start thinking differently if you believe that you can. That's a great example of a limiting belief. And so in our own lives, we are often held back by these in every spoke on our wheel. But how do we identify them without having somebody else point them out to us? It's through your feelings. and through your emotions and your actions. If you follow this process, it can be an invitation to look inward and be able to see what is sitting just beneath the surface. So the way that I designed the thought wheel is in a circle. And that's because in today's exercise, we're going to start with the question, how am I feeling? And we're going to begin there. And we're going to go around there's a total of 8 questions. But it's a circle because you could actually start anywhere. You could begin any point on here. These questions we're going to dive into. We're going to start with the feeling. We're going to move into the thoughts and the events and the actions. But you could also work this backwards. Okay, I want a certain result. I want a certain end. Let's go backwards. What do I need to be thinking? And therefore, how do I need to feel to make myself think that way? You could do this in reverse and also have a really powerful transformation. But for most people, in most of the time, in most of my coaching calls, we're beginning with feelings. But I do have it as a circle because you could choose any starting point. There's no right or wrong way to use this tool. Also, it is designed as a circle. And by the way, those of you who are on the podcast and not on the YouTube, the visual is in the show notes, so you can download it and you can look at this wheel. And it'll help you to kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. But even if you don't pull it up now, if you're driving in the car or something, it's fine. I'm going to walk through the 8 questions. And so just download it later, like at the end. It's fine either way. Whether you're looking at it or not, you'll still get the full value out of this episode. So in there's little wedges. It looks like a pie, and I have the 8 questions. You can print it out as a worksheet and answer the questions inside the pie if you want to. I actually never do that. When I use this tool for myself, I use it as journal prompts, because asking ourselves questions and writing the answers, it's just like last week's episode where I literally told you guys 10 times to pause and answer the questions. When you go in, that's where the magic is. It's inside of you. I can't tell you all of the answers. You have to go in yourself and find them. Well, what's beautiful about writing, and I love pen and paper. Lots of people have studied this, and there is great power in pen and paper. I will say that I've had some really powerful transformations by typing. So as much as I would love to say, like, definitely use pen and paper, it's so much better for all these reasons, and here's the studies to say why it's better. Sure, that's fine. It's actually what I prefer and what I do. But if you want to type this out on your phone, that's fine. You can, or if you want to get your laptop out, it's fine. It can still be beautiful and healing. I saw that in my book. When I read my book, some really crazy stuff came out of that experience, and that was all typed on a Word document. So whether you type it or you write it, it's all good. But what's really cool about writing is that when you write, the left and the right brain, you're using both sides of the brain. And you're connecting your conscious and your subconscious. That's what's so powerful about writing. So for those of you who maybe journal, it's such a great habit. And so these prompts, it's just 8 journal prompts. But when you sit down and ask yourself these 8 questions, you will surprise yourself with what is going to come up. Because when you're just thinking, you're only in your mind. But when you're writing, you're using all of your brain, so the left and the right side, they're the little, paths, they're talking to each other and they're connected, but you're also going up and down, and you're pulling stuff up out of that subconscious, out of that soul. It's coming up out of you. And so you never really know what's going to come out. It's such a surprise, and it's absolutely worth exploring inside. So, where did this come from? I'm not like some genius who invented this stuff. I will tell you guys, I know my strengths. I actually can be quite a genius at certain things, but it is not this kind of stuff. My genius, everybody has a genius. Everybody has a gift, a talent, a special skill. My genius is, I love the Strengths Finders tool. So if you've ever done the Clifton Strengths, it's so worth the money to drop that to learn about yourself. My number 1 is activator. So I'm just a person who takes action. I implement, I go. I'm a fantastic starter. Not a great finisher, fantastic starter. And then some other strengths of mine are strategic thinking and connectedness. So what that means, and it is relevant to the thought wheel, is because I didn't create this. These questions already existed. This approach existed. What I did was I put it into action because I have a strategic thinking. So my brain thinks like a chessboard. And I see where all the pieces need to be, and I connect the dots together. And then I take action and figure out this is where we have to go, which is what makes me a really great coach. It's like, okay, you have this going on over here, this going on over here. Let's make a plan. Well, these things are all connected. The thought wheel. These things are all connected. And now we need to go here. And this is our next step. That's what I do almost every coaching call. And that is what my personal strength is. So when I went into this, I used that to look at lots of different theories and lots of other ways and coaching tools that other people had made. And none of them were working for me. They left me feeling frustrated. They left me feeling like they were complicated. It wasn't simple enough. And so I just kept diving and digging. And then I landed on this tool. And the foundation of the principle it's built upon is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is decades old, studied in psychology. And the idea behind cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what a lot of talk therapists do, by the way, is this philosophy of what we think creates how we feel. How we feel influences how we behave. And how we behave reinforces what we think. So, said another way, if you change your thoughts, you will change your life. And just to like reiterate this, because I want to make sure this is like connecting for you guys, because this is magic. This right here, this is magic. Understand, your thoughts are creating all of your results. What we are thinking in our brains creates how we feel. Based on how we feel, we will take action and have behaviors that are reflective of what we're feeling. Those actions and behaviors that we are taking will create the results we're experiencing in our lives, but they also then reinforce what we think. So let's use an example of, just because it's so relatable and it's talked about a lot, like whether or not you feel like exercising, okay? So what we think creates how we feel. Let's say that you think, I am lazy. And you believe that, like, I'm lazy. I'm in this frumpy mood and I'm lazy. Okay, well, when you think that you're lazy, you're going to feel like not getting off the couch. And then when you don't feel like getting off of the couch, it's going to affect your behavior because you're probably not going to show up to the gym. And then when you don't show up at the gym, you're not going to have as much energy because you're not exercising. So you're going to keep feeling lazy, right? And you're going to keep telling yourself you're lazy. It's this like self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a cycle. Well, how do you break out of that? You have to change your thoughts. You can't believe that you're a lazy person. So I would, if this was coming up on a coaching call with somebody, I would probably say, well, sometimes your body probably needs rest. So what if instead of thinking that you're lazy, what if you say, sometimes, like my thought is, I respect and honor my body and her needs. And sometimes she needs to rest. And sometimes she's craving for me to move her. She wants more energy. She wants to feel stronger. Like, what does she want? How does she want me to love on her? I am somebody who loves and cares on my body. And when you start thinking, I am somebody who loves and cares for my body, then maybe sometimes you will give her the rest that she's asking for, but sometimes you'll give her the movement that she's asking for, right? And then that'll influence your behaviors, right? Okay, I am somebody that loves on my body. Well, today she wants to stretch. So maybe it's some yoga. Today she wants to move. Maybe you go on a walk. Today she wants to get stronger. Maybe you hit the gym. But if you change the thoughts you have in your brain, you will produce different results. And this is the premise behind cognitive behavioral therapy. What we think creates how we feel creates how we behave produces our results. And then it reinforces what we think. It's like it's a circle, right? You guys see this? It's important for you to understand that because it's why the thought wheel works. So the first question is how I'm feeling. And so a great way to start with this is to begin with asking yourself, what is something that is bothering me right now? Tap into a feeling that's bothering you, tap into an uncomfortable emotion. And that is a great way to walk through this together. Now, what we're going to do for this podcast episode is I'm going to walk you through an example of when I felt triggered. The kitchen was calling me, okay? And instead of listening to that urge I was having, I grabbed a thought wheel and I reflected on it. And I'm going to show you the result it produced. For the purposes of this episode, I think it would benefit you the most to listen to this and then download the wheel for yourself and ask yourself these questions. And what I would really love, because when I do this, the first couple of times, especially the first time that I introduce this to a client, I'm usually on the phone with them and we can do it together. And they might get stuck somewhere along the way. And so what I'd like to ask of you, if you get stuck, don't stay there. Reach out to me. And on the next episode, or within the next couple of episodes, because I might, it doesn't matter, whatever, soon, I will answer those on the podcast. I don't want you guys to stay stuck. So send me that question, because if one person is stuck, then there's probably 10 or 12 who are not going to email me who are also having the same problem. So if you get a hiccup anywhere along the way and you feel like you can't finish your wheel, send me what's going on. Tell me the story behind it. I'll help you get unstuck. And I'll clarify it on the episode on another episode. So that being said, I want you guys to do this for yourself, because just hearing my story isn't going to transform your life. It might inspire you or help you think differently or give you great perspective, but your transformation is going to happen when you sit down with this tool and you ask yourself these questions, okay? So all of that long intro, let's get into the tool. The first question is how I'm feeling. There is another tool called the feelings wheel that I also am linking to the PDF that that you can get when you download it, and it names the emotions and how they're interconnected with each other in such an incredible way that I really recommend keeping them together, the thought wheel and the feelings wheel. And so then when you sit down and you answer this first question, how am I feeling? I really encourage you to look at the feelings wheel to see how all of these emotions are connected to one another, because you might it might help you name it better than you would have just trying to use your mind, or it might give you some clarity. So the feelings wheel is really powerful. I'm also going to link it. An example in this case, the story of when I'm going to walk through you guys with is one night. This was almost 2 years ago. So it was July 2021. I was sitting on the couch scrolling Instagram like I often do. And I came across this post, but I didn't quite realize it bothered me yet. So let me not jump ahead to the story. So I was just sitting there scrolling. And then all of a sudden, I just felt like putting the phone down, and I started walking to the freezer. But I had just made this tool for myself with all of these, theories, and there was tools by other coaches I looked into that, I just kind of like connected all this stuff together. And I just created, at the time, the thought wheel was a list of questions in order. I hadn't made it a wheel yet, but I had this worksheet I had just finished creating. And I put my hand on the freezer and I was like, oh, crap. I should just go grab one of those worksheets that I just made for this very reason. I think I need to not eat the ice cream. I think I need to ask myself what's under this. So I went and got it. And the first question is how I'm feeling. And I sat down with this feelings wheel. And at first I thought that I was sad. But then when I looked at all of the different words, I realized what I was actually feeling was jealousy. I had triggered jealousy. But why? I don't actually care. Like when people talk about how Instagram makes people feel jealous. I don't care about other people's bodies. I don't care about the things that other people own. That doesn't do anything for me. What had happened on this particular night is I was scrolling, and an account that I love following, the creator behind it was July. They had gone on a summer vacation, and she had taken a picture of her daughter on the beach, who was very close in age to my daughter. And the daughter was laughing and smiling, and the mom wrote this caption that said, "We only get 18 summers." And I read that, and that's when I sat my phone down and started walking to the kitchen. But because I paused, I then had to sit with that, and I had to ask myself. So that's the question. The first question is how I'm feeling. The second question is, what event caused this feeling? So I wrote down that I, saw this photo on Instagram of this little kid at the beach. So then I had to ask myself the third question, which is, what is the thought behind this feeling? Why did seeing that little girl smiling on the beach bring up feelings of jealousy and sadness inside of me? Well, context. Summer of 2021. My life was very stressful. We were going through a bunch of health stuff with my daughter, and we're trying a holistic approach to working with the Amen Clinic. You'll probably hear me talk about them in future episodes. But anyways, we had gone to this holistic psychiatric practice to help. I openly talk about the fact that my daughter has childhood anxiety, and we're trying to help her. And they do these brain scans that are really cool. So you can, instead of treating like symptoms or guessing, you just get straight to the root cause. But it was, oh my gosh, the work that we had to do. So they were able to show us exactly what was happening in her brain. But the solutions to helping her basically required us to turn our entire lives upside down. We had to change all of the food. I had to closely watch everything because we had to do the elimination diet to see what could be triggering it. And so every single meal, every single snack was a stressful experience. And then on top of that, we had like 20 vitamins and supplements and stuff that I had to do at different times as we're experimenting. Essentially, it was a summer of experimentation. We had to figure out what was going to help her, but we didn't know. Everything was an experiment. Everything was throwing spaghetti against the wall as we're trying to figure out what was causing inflammation in her brain and what was going to help her calm down. And everything was hard. Everything was watching her constant behavior to see if this was triggering this or that, or what was all connected. And we had to do breathing exercises, and we had to do physical exercises, and we had to watch sleep schedules. And I mean, just everything about every moment of my life with these kids was complicated, on top of the fact that I had just left my full-time job and I was trying to get my coaching business off the ground. And I could not even think about growing my business when I was inundated with all of this work to care for my daughter. So then you add that financial stress of I've left my job, but I only have a few clients and I need to bring in more, but I'm not doing all the work it takes to bring in more. It was stressful. It was exhausting. It was overwhelming. And so what is the thought behind this feeling? Well, when I saw that picture of the little girl at the beach, this was July, and it made me realize that summer was halfway over and I had not done one fun thing with my children. My kids love the beach. My daughter, she loved the beach. I hadn't taken her. My son was 3. I live in Florida, and he had never even been. And I knew he would love it. It's his personality all day long, and he loves water. And my daughter loves swimming so much, and she had been asking for pool dates, and I hadn't taken her to a pool. And we were 5 or 6 weeks into summer at this point, and I hadn't even taken the kids swimming. And my son, he was obsessed with fish at the time. Like, it was just crazy how much he was obsessed with fish. That I'll have to tell you guys stories on other episodes, because it was quite hilarious when he tried to catch the fish, the pet fish in our house. Oh no, he did successfully catch it. Yeah. And yeah, that's the whole thing. But he was obsessed with fish, and I had not taken him fishing. But I don't fish. My husband doesn't fish. So I had to listen, I live in rural America. Like, I know a million people who fish. I live in Florida. It's like, there's a lot of fishing culture here. I know a lot of people who could help me take my son fishing, but I hadn't even had the bandwidth or the capacity to ask. And so it was, seeing this photo, it brought up all this shame inside of me, because I just thought to myself, we only get 18 summers and I haven't done one fun thing with my kids. I'm just surviving. So the thought behind the feeling was actually, I'm not a good mom, right? I'm not a good mom. I should have taken my kids to the beach by now. That's what my brain said. So then the fourth question is, what is fact? What are the thoughts behind the facts? Okay, so this is usually where people get stuck. If they get stuck on the wheel, they get stuck right here. So you have to separate. You take that thought. In this case, my thought was, I'm not a good mom. I should have taken my kids to the beach by now. So now you have to separate with these thoughts what is actually a fact. Like, everyone would agree on this unanimously. This is undebatable. This is the reality of exactly what has happened, non-negotiable. And then what part of these thoughts is just an opinion or something you're projecting, or it is a thought about the fact. So that's the fact, but you're adding this baggage to the thought, right? You have to separate what is the fact from what is just thoughts about the facts. So given my example, the fact is that I had not taken my kids to the beach. That had happened. That was true, right? My kids had not been to the beach. My son had never been, and my daughter had not been that summer. Non-negotiable. But the thoughts about the fact, it is not a fact that I'm a bad mom. That is not true. That was a thought that I had about the fact. And how many of us have done this, right? So when I separated that, okay, the fact is I have to take my kids to the beach, but it does not affect that I'm a bad mom. And actually, if you break down why I haven't taken them, I'm a fucking amazing mom. Are you kidding me? Do you see how many hurdles I am jumping through to get my daughter help so she can stay calmer and doesn't have anxiety and panic attacks at 7 years old? Like, I drove to Atlanta for a special clinic to find the best doctor in the country to help her. I am an amazing mother. Yet, sitting on the couch, scrolling Instagram at 10 o'clock at night, your thoughts can start lying to you, right? It's that whole comparison is the thief of joy, right? So you separate it. And then the next question, what is in my control and what is not? So in my example, what was in my control and what was not? Well, I can ask for help, right? It's not actually up to me. I am not the only person. We live within driving distance of my parents. We've got aunts, we've got uncles. I've lived for 25 years in this town. I have a wealth of friends. Like, I'm not actually, they have a dad that lives here. Like, we're a family. Like, this is not all on me. I am not solely responsible for being the only person capable of giving them experiences. But if this matters to me and it's bothering me, it is up to me to ask for the help, right? And so what's in my control? I can ask for help. What is not in my control is, how other people respond to that, right? What they say. And the reality was, I cannot control that I have other priorities. I've taken on these other priorities that I'm trying to manage, and they're not going to go away. I can't make the things that are distracting me from the fun, I can't make those things go away. What's also in my control is I can set a date on the calendar. A big reason why the fun things hadn't happened is because I didn't have any intention around it, right? Like so much of our lives just requires intention. I had to have it in my awareness that it mattered to me. And then I just had to put it on the calendar and make a plan. But I was so busy with all of this other stuff, just the daily life, that I hadn't lifted my head up to go, oh, I need to put some plans on the calendar, right? So then, is there a new thought you can create? That's the next question. Based on all this information, is there a new thought I can create? My new thought was, I am doing the best I can. I am an amazing mom, and my kids have an awesome life. That's the reality. I'm not even like making that shit up. That stuff's true. And sometimes we just have to remind ourselves of the truth, because our brains will feed us lies. The next question is, what can I learn about myself? Well, what this taught me was I did not realize how much it mattered to me to take my kids to the beach. I don't like the beach. Like, I did not realize how much this mattered to me. But the fact that that photo triggered jealousy showed me something, right? It taught me something. Sidebar, jealousy is my favorite emotion. If you were to take that whole list on the feelings wheel and look at all the emotions, I love jealousy because she is the best mirror. Jealousy will point you to exactly what you desire. What do you really want? She'll tell you. She only shows up when there is an unmet need that you have. So I love jealousy. Whatever is triggering that in you, it's actually showing you that you have an unmet desire, that you have an unmet want. And so she arrives, you say hi, oh, didn't expect to see you today. You get the message from her. Let her deliver her message. This is actually important to you. This actually matters to you. This is what you truly desire. This is what you truly want. Say thank you, goodbye, and you let her leave. And then you go take action on getting closer to your goals and what you want and what you desire. Like if you treat jealousy as a messenger, man, she's powerful. Friggin' love her. So anyways, point being, jealousy doesn't come up in me a lot, but it came up that day. And it taught me, what can I learn about myself? That's the question. I didn't realize how much it was bothering me that I hadn't taken my kids to the beach, the pool, and fishing. Like it was out there in the peripheral. It was floating in the back of my mind. But it turns out it was actually really important to me. And I didn't know that. So then the last question, question number 8. Are there any actions I can take? So I thought about these 3 things and I realized, well, I need to ask for help and put a date on the calendar and make some plans because apparently this is important to me. So that night I sat, it was kind of late, so I didn't want to text people. I opened up Facebook Messenger and decided to text my dad who fishes and to text some friends to see if I can get some play dates on the calendar and get this beach and pool and fishing stuff off my mind. So if you're on YouTube, I actually screenshotted this and you can see July 6, 2021, I texted my dad and I said, it's hard, it gets you choked up, like, because you just don't realize how these little things are the big things, right? I think it's also gets me choked up every time. I've read this multiple times at speaking engagements and it chokes me up every time. And I think it's because it touches on that nerve for so many of us that asking for help is so hard. It doesn't have to be, but for so many of us, especially those of us who are super independent and self-sufficient, like the vulnerability to raise your hand and say, I need help is so hard. And so whenever I see this, it sounds like such a simple text. And if you were the recipient of it, you would think it was no big deal, because it says, "Hey, Dad, my kids really want to go fishing. When can we make it happen?" But what you can't see, and the reason that it chokes me up every time I have to talk about this, is what you can't see is the way I felt in my body when I had to type that out. It sounds so easy, but it was so vulnerable and so scary. And it just feels like it would make life so much easier if other people would know what we wanted and be able to read our minds and just give us the things that we need help with. But that doesn't happen, right? Like, we have to know our needs, and we have to advocate for ourselves, and we have to ask for help. But damn it, it's hard, right? For so many of us, it's so hard. And so anyways, he was still awake. So he replied, "We'll figure it out, maybe Saturday or Sunday. We coordinate." I gave him some availability. Well, it ended up happening a few days later. We were heading out of town the next weekend. And so he took him, I think it was like that Friday night, just a few days later. And you could see clearly life was busy, because this is July 6th. There's a little picture of my daughter with one of her little friends, coordinated a pool play date for August 6th, so a month later. And then, just because life is busy, it took, July, August, it took 3 months to get to the beach, but made it happen, put the date on the calendar. I was debating if I was going to tell this story, but I am going to tell you guys this story. There's a longer version of this beach one. That same night, I texted my dad and these two friends about these plans, and everybody was still awake at apparently 10:51 is when I was sending them. And they were all still awake, and they texted back. So within like 15 minutes of me sending those messages, I had all 3 of these dates on the calendar. But but for the beach one, the friend and I that were coordinating, and just how our lives are, we had to plan it 3 months out. The rest of the story, I normally don't have time in my speaking engagements to tell the rest of the story, but we're on a podcast. You guys are here with me if you want to stay. There's more to that story. So we planned it 3 months out, and at 5 a.m. that morning, she canceled. And I had already told my kids that I'm taking them. And at this point, I'm kind of stubborn, right? Because I have decided this matters to me, and apparently it's a really big deal. And apparently it's why I was going to try to eat my feelings. And I'm doing this, damn it, right? I had made up my mind that this mattered to me. But the other person didn't realize how much it mattered to me, right? And so they canceled. And I had told my kids I was going to take them, and they were so excited. And so I'll never forget that my husband was working, it's out of town or something. So that's why I was by myself. And I loaded them up in the car, drove the friend I specifically asked the friend that I did, because I knew that she liked to go. And so already owned all of if you go to the beach, there's so much shit you got to take with you, the chairs and the shade and the stuff. And I didn't own any of that, and I didn't want to go buy all of that stuff. So I had specifically asked this friend, knowing she already had all that stuff, and she had kids that could, play with my kids, kind of thing. And when she canceled at 5 a.m., I didn't have all the stuff, right? It left me dead in the water. But it really mattered to me. And so I told the kids, I was like, yeah, we're going, but never mind about the people were going to come with us. They can't come anymore. So I will never forget loading my kids up in our Prius at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I drove to Walmart and just bought it all, and just said, whatever, I don't care how much this bill is. I think it ended up being $200 or something. I was like, whatever, this is apparently really important to me, I'm just making this happen. And we bought all of the lawn chairs, and we bought the shade thing, which I bought this stupid one that I ended up having to throw away because it was awful. So I attempted to buy a thing for shade and the toys and I don't know, all the stuff. So we just bought what we needed, threw it in the back of the Prius, drove there, spent the morning, got lunch, came home. They fell asleep in the car on the ride back, right? But I remember sitting and just being really proud of myself because I hate the beach. Like I just don't like it. The sun, and I'm really pale and I get burned, and then the sand, the way it feels on me, it like touches all the parts of my body. I don't like it. But I wanted to give that experience to my kids, and so I did it anyway. And I just remember thinking, even when, I will always show up for myself, right? Like I remember that's like something that it taught me was, even if other people, disappoint me or let me down, like I am committed to creating the desires of my life and what I want. I am committed to showing up for myself. Even if other people don't show up, I will show up for me always. And I did. And they had such a good time, like such a good time. My kids had a blast. And now we own all the stuff. So we have gone back. And it's just funny though, right? Like how these little things are the big things. And when I started recording this, I did not know I was going to cry. But here we are, episode number 2. It's already coming out. But the point of this episode is the thought wheel. So let's go back to that. At the end of the day, I sat there with that worksheet at 10 o'clock at night. And I don't remember how many minutes it took me to go through this. It was probably, 15 or 20 minutes of sitting down, reflecting on these questions, and then opening up the messenger app on my phone and sending 3 messages. And when those plans were on the calendar, relief came over my body. And the craving went away. I didn't need the ice cream, right? I didn't need to escape the thing. I needed to address the thing. But without pausing and reflecting and asking these inside questions, I didn't even know what the thing was. And that's why this tool's so helpful. I could give you story after story after story after story of clients who come to me. I'm just so overwhelmed. I'm just so stressed. I'm just so angry. I'm just so like whatever mood I'm catching him in that day. And I will say, have you run a thought wheel on it? And of course, because we're human, I know if I was on the other end, I'd probably say the same thing. No, I haven't. And I'll pause and I'll ask them these questions. And it is always amazing every time we walk through this. It ends with them having clarity and seeing it completely differently, and they always know the right next thing to do. Because escaping doesn't fix it, but what we can do is we can take our power back. What is in my control? What new thoughts can I create? What is there to learn about myself here? What actions can I take? It's powerful. You can take your power back. That's all I have for you today, guys. I think I'm going to have some vulnerability hangover from this episode, but I'm going to publish it anyway. So next time you feel that urge coming on and you want to escape, or you want to numb, or you want to not deal with it, you may not even know what the it is. You probably don't know what the it is. Just know it's okay to feel your uncomfortable feelings. There's nothing wrong with them. They're beautiful. They're a part of us. Welcome to being human. But embrace them. Let them in. They can teach you so much. They can teach you so much. The feelings wheel if you look at that one, the feelings are broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 main categories. Happy, surprised, bad, fearful, angry, disgusted, and sad. We live in this world that really prioritizes those happy feelings. But even the surprised is kind of like a mix. I see amazed and excited, but I also see like disillusioned, dismayed, shocked, astonished. So let's just, if we call surprised good, which I think sometimes surprise is like 50-50 good or bad, but out of 7 of these, 5.5 are not happy feelings. And yet we want to pretend like they don't exist. We want to suppress them. We want to ignore them. We want to escape from them. But they have so much to teach us and show us and help us. And so my wish for you is that you'll start paying attention to those urges and that desire to escape. And next time you feel it coming on, maybe you'll come back to this podcast episode and you'll download that thought wheel. And you don't need to actually print out the worksheet. You can if you want to, but those wedges are never enough space for me. I verbose. I need to write it all out. I have a lot of thoughts. Sometimes I type them on my computer in a Word document. Sometimes it's on my phone in a memo. Sometimes I open up a journal and just start writing. And every time there's something to learn, there's a new thought to create, and there's a new action to take. So with that, friends, may we all take our power back and write some new thoughts. Sending you my love. Bye. That's it for today. Thanks for sticking around until the end. Make sure you subscribe or follow so you don't miss future episodes. To connect with me on social media, my Instagram and Facebook handles are @theSophiaHyde. If you're curious about one-on-one coaching, the first step is to book a roadmap session. It's a 1-hour deep dive into your favorite wheel, followed by a 30-minute consultation to see if future coaching sessions would be a good fit for you. To schedule your roadmap session, visit faveself.com. That's FAVEself.com.